just don't want to be living with a guy's family, because no matter what you do, they are like family at the end of the day, right? And the funny thing is, like, it's not just your parents getting older, it's also mine. So if my family has to figure out how the fuck to live on their own, why does the guy's family not have to do the same thing?
Should have thought of that before they had a daughter.
Sounds Extreme is a podcast where we talk about opinions that
Sound extreme?
even though they shouldn't really.
That's right. I'm ready.
I have a question.
Okay.
Why should I, as a woman, have to live with your parents when we get married?
Ooh.
Why is
okay.
that an expectation?
Because it's the right thing to do.
Come on, really?
No, because, I'm giving you my last name, I'm giving you a house, like, you could show some gratitude. You could look after my parents.
Yeah, okay. What about you looking after my parents and giving you a child?
No.
Who takes forward
It's
your
wrong.
lineage?
It's wrong.
It's wrong.
The man.
The man, yes,
does.
the man definitely takes forward the lineage. On a serious note, though, there's this huge expectation that I have to stay with I'm not talking about us specifically, but the expectation is in our culture that when women get married, they usually go and live with the man and his family.
Right.
Why?
It's a patriarchal culture, so
Who does it serve?
men. It serves the men and their family.
Then why have women jumped on this train as though it serves them? And it doesn't.
Because culture. Because that's what we're taught. That's how we're conditioned and programmed. That's the short answer, I think.
What's the long answer?
The long answer is also patriarchy, but it is about creating a system that, basically treats women as kind of labor for the men, for a male-dominated society. And that's why women after marriage go live with their in-laws, because that's the whole point of marriage, is to have someone that looks after you and your family and raises your children, looks after the house, and does all those things.
Why wasn't this your proposal speech?
It was in the fine print. It was in the fine print.
It doesn't
You didn't
sound-
read?
No. It just doesn't
true.
sound as romantic when you really talk about what marriage really means. It's just not very romantic at all, but we make it seem as though a marriage is for two people that fall in love and it's such a beautiful thing to do and is the best day of your life.
Have you read any of the marriage vows? Like, have you read what people say as they go around the fire?
I don't necessarily think the vows are that bad, actually. If you'd like, I will take care of you and I will always put you first. Obviously, there are some patriarchal vows that I think they've changed with time, which is not that I will, you will earn for me and I will cook for you, but you will protect me and I will serve you.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it sounds like a cop. What in America, that's what's on the police
And
cars.
then the woman comes in front. The bride comes in front for one of the pedas because
Wow.
if there must be death, take me first.
Wow, so progressive. Yeah.
But yeah, I think some of the vows actually work, which is that we will put each other first and not our families.
Sure.
And then tradition and family tells you that fuck each other, you should be putting your parents first. But I like that they say that, we're each other's number one priority.
Yeah.
In health and, I don't know, death do us apart and all of that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think
I'm just anti the Mangal Sutra and the Sindoor and the Kanyadan. Other than that, I love weddings.
right, sure. Yeah, I think maybe things have changed over time in terms of like vows and stuff like that, and the things that as a modern society, like things become less palatable. Like if it's overtly patriarchal or whatever, then it's not gonna go down as well. And when people are getting married nowadays, especially in like bigger cities or diaspora, they will probably reject some of the old school vows if they weren't updated, right? But at the same time, we're kind of putting a different face, I think, on an institution. We're making it seem a lot more individualistic when the actual institution of marriage is more about like it's social and political, right? Like it is something that is an organizing like block of our society is like the family, couples and families. So while it seems like two people getting married, it's an institution which is designed to uphold or like take society further. And our society is based on certain values and it's set up
Patriarchal values.
basically.
Yeah.
And it's set up in a way that upholds that system, the institution of marriage I'm talking about. So this is just like going back to the topic, which we've
Yeah.
like successfully digressed from, the whole norm of the bride coming to live with her in-laws and look after their families and help around the house, not help, but basically do the household chores. That is why women go live with their in-laws after marriage.
That is also why women were younger, I guess. Brides have to be younger than the grooms and not the other way around because your husband's going to grow old and you need to be young enough to look after him. So if you're the same age and you grow old together, how are you being the caretaker? Unless you have a son and then he brings in a bahu.
I mean, maybe this is where the word grooming comes from, but like that's why they had like women who are younger in the equation for this exact reason. But then also they looked for partners of their sons to uphold this tradition, I guess.
Like, where does that leave us as a society that's trying to change and adapt to our own needs? And now women are working and, you know, everybody sort of has on the surface an equal space that they occupy. If we're in love and marriage is still something that is required from your family side before you move in together or like start living together and you get married, but like you're in love and everything's great and most of your values align, but you don't really want to live with his parents. Like, what do I do if I don't want to live with your parents once we get married?
You talk about it, I guess.
Yeah, but what if you're like, no, I need to live with my parents. They're growing old. Who's going to look after them? And I love them, and fair enough, that sounds valid, but I just don't want to be living with a guy's family, because no matter what you do, they are like family at the end of the day, right? And the funny thing is, like, it's not just your parents getting older, it's also mine. So if my family has to figure out how the fuck to live on their own, why does the guy's family not have to do the same thing?
Should have thought of that before they had a daughter. It's a good point, I think, because it's very one-sided. Like the flow of benefits goes like very much towards the male side in a marriage, right? There's nothing about the institution of marriage that is like egalitarian, that is like equal in that way. We're chipping away at it, I think, piece by piece, but the basic like default norms, and even though in my lifetime how much the common or like popular discourse around marriage has shifted, being like, oh, I can't wait to give you my name. Justin Timberlake, early 2000s, that was like his lyrics were talking about that. But now the idea of
Really? What song is that?
what goes around comes around. I was ready to give you my name. Like,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Bruno Mars was still talking about that a while ago.
yeah, but that I know.
Ask your dad for your hand in marriage and shit.
Well, I've noticed that some of these things, like people are questioning it more. That like, well, why is it set up that way? But it's kind of still an uphill battle, I guess. But yeah, to answer your question, I think a lot of couples would struggle with this idea because there is like a default system embedded in this idea of marriage that we don't really talk about, but then the expectations are kind of set at a cultural level, and that's how we're programmed to think about marriage. So there are a lot of couples that would have uphill conversations around this, where an underlying expectation, especially for men, would be that, oh, well, you come live with me and my family, why not? They're your family now. But they see, like men usually see their wife's family or partner's family as in-laws.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm supposed to see your parents as my parents,
Right.
you know?
Because you're supposed to take on the name and all of these things are connected.
Yeah, it's like slowly erasing a woman and her identity as you get married. Even though I give birth, it's not my child, it's your child. The child takes your name, I take your name. My family's somewhere behind in the scene. I have new parents as well. All of that seems like a crazy idea. Like, I have no idea why women today would sign up to do something like that. I understand back in the day where they couldn't open bank accounts, sure. But why would you willingly sign up to this bullshit today?
We don't package it like this, right? Like if we had to read all the terms and conditions for like when we buy an iPhone or something like that, or sign up to Facebook, if we had to read every term and condition, be like, wait a minute, I don't want to do this. I don't consent to my data being used like this. In the same way that when you buy into the idea of marriage as being something that you want to do, it's usually the narrative around marriage is like it's sold as pretty outfits, most important day of your life, sold in this like aspirational thing that
I blame Bollywood.
yeah, and I feel like other married people just want everyone else to go through the same thing. Yeah,
You need to do it too.
it's so good. Oh, I love. And
It's a bit sadistic.
I mean, not if you're a man who's marrying like a woman who's has traditional beliefs as well. Then you've got a pretty good deal.
Sure, I mean, poor
If you wanted a servant, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem. Like married people, and I'm pretty sure our married friends, a lot of them judge us as well.
It's okay, they're not listening to this podcast. It's
They're
fine.
clearly not. We can say whatever.
Yeah.
In general, they're just in such a rush for you to do the same mistakes that they've made, you know?
Yeah.
Rather than learn from my mistakes, it's like, come make the same mistakes as me so we can all be collectively one in a society together, and then no one will know what's wrong with us.
But do you think they actually see it as a mistake?
I think if they could see how much of themselves they're giving up, like the women,
Yeah.
they would see it as a mistake.
Some of them definitely do. I have.
Although a lot of them do take pride in this whole like Mrs. So-and-so thing, right? Even the most educated women on the internet and around us, like we live in Barcelona and there's so many hens parties here all the time.
Yeah.
And everyone's wearing a Mrs. badge. But then when you see the guys having a bachelor party, nobody's doing this, Mr. I don't know, Priyanka Chopra.
Usually they're dressed up as like a giant penis or something.
Yeah, they're not doing the whole, I'm so happy to be married to this woman,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm celebrating. But every caption on Instagram, every party that I see is just about this celebration for women that,
Yeah.
like, I'm about to become Mrs. Jones.
Yeah. That's the cultural default, right? That's the default way that we look at marriage.
Also, Priyanka did keep her last name, but I just don't want to be using, I can only think of people that I shouldn't be talking about. So I just chose Priyanka.
Yeah, I think that's the default way of looking at marriage, right? And these things you just like passively accept, like, yeah, we must have a bachelor party, must have a hens night, where this is what they did at the other hens nights, and that's what they've been doing at hens nights for the last however many generations. And same thing with bachelor parties.
Women celebrate a whole different part about not being single anymore, as though it's a victory to have found a man to attach yourself with. You're no longer single, and that's something to have pride for. Like, look, I made it in some way in life. Whereas men are celebrating their last day of like singlehood.
Yeah, I think for men it's less stigmatized to be single.
Yeah.
Is way less stigmatized because hey, at the end of the day, you're in your 40s, you could probably start dating a 25-year-old and people are not going to think anything. That's what a lot of the late 30s, like early 40s men have done. So it's not the same issue. Whereas for the women, suddenly in their late 30s or early 40s, they have more custody of the kids. They have more things to do, like that more responsibilities, more duties and stuff.
Yeah, more looked down upon in society because now you're suddenly a divorced woman.
Yeah.
That's not something to celebrate.
Or you want to date, like what you want to date, but you have
Like,
kids.
he left you, why? You know,
Yeah.
like, what's wrong with you? But
Yeah.
nobody asks men that.
Again, these are all the little mechanisms that we have that go into support this idea of why women place such a high value on marriage and stuff. And I guess the one thing I was going to say earlier was that the traditions that we have are like a Trojan horse for conservative beliefs, right? Like it's a nice like package that looks like shiny. This is tradition. We do this. We take the last name. We welcome the bride into the house. Like all of these little like fun traditions are the little like hidden vehicle through which suddenly you're in the middle of a patriarchal marriage where the guy's asking you to live with his family.
And his family then decides, like, oh, now you're our daughter-in-law. You're part of our family. So what you do in society is a reflection of us, right? Until you got married, that wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
But now it's about our respect and our culture and how people see our family. And you've just handed over your entire freedom and ability to make decisions for yourself into this whole family's hand.
Right.
And you have to live with them. And it's not as simple as living with them, right? Because there are certain expectations when you live in the house. You're not going to walk around in your underwear and a t-shirt. And some people might be like, well, that's not the end of everything. But it is. It's how much you give up every little day, whether you can get out of the shower the same way that your husband does around his family. You know, whether you can walk around, get up at the same time, not be involved in the kitchen, not have to look after the parents at all. Like, there are certain do's and don'ts that are very unsaid, like they're very unspoken.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so even very progressive people who end up doing this think that it's not that big of a deal because my in-laws treat me like I'm their own daughter, but you're not. You know, like, this goes back to that first conversation we had where you're not their daughter. And if you're not living with your own parents, who you are their daughter, why are you living with someone else's parents?
It's the norm, right? And I wonder why it doesn't go I wonder why it doesn't go the other way.
It doesn't go the other way because ghar jamai is such a negative term. You
Right.
know, men are looked down upon. It's something that's used as an insult. To call a guy a ghar jamai is not a good thing. So we've very conveniently attached a very negative emotion to a word where men live with their in-laws just to make them feel shame, I guess. One was positive. Why did the other have to be so negative? Like, it's somehow like saying that you've achieved nothing in life, clearly. You couldn't earn good money. You're someone that you're kind of like a simp, whatever that means, because why else would you live with your wife's parents if you weren't an absolute loser in life?
Yeah, which I guess speaks to one of the things that patriarchy does to men and how it damages quality of life for men, is that it requires men, like, as a central feature of patriarchy, you have to be in control. Like, you have to be dominant. It's not just about, like, men having advantages. It's about men being dominant. And being a ghar jamai, or like living with your in-laws, basically undermines that control that you're supposed to have as a man. It's why you're supposed to be the breadwinner. It's why you're supposed to keep your woman in line. It's why they're supposed to take your last name. You're supposed to have control. And anything less than that is considered like unmanly. That's how we define masculinity, is around how much control you have over others. And that's the thing that is changing a little bit. That's still pervades things like marriage, things like how families are set up, pervades basically everything. And not just in Indian culture, but you see its influence everywhere.
Okay, so basically we won't live with our parents.
Yes. No, you're going to live with mine.
No, if we're going to do parents, we're going to do all of them together.
Oh.
We'll get your parents in one house, my mom as well. Just everybody in the same house. It's either none or all together.
What could go wrong?
Nothing.
What could go wrong?
Could possibly go
Everyone
wrong?
will be happy.
They'll keep
all
each
the
other
time.
entertained.
That's right. That's right. Sounds.
You know, right? In that kind of a situation, the funny thing is, I can just picture it, but everybody in the family would have a common person to bitch about, which is me.
Oh, true. Oh, this might not be so bad.
That's what they do when they hang out
True.
anyway, right? So, like, when they catch up, it would just be this little session about how Saloni's lost the plot.
I mean, like I said, you should have thought of that before you became a woman.
I know. Okay, so we don't live with parents.
Bad decision.
Very bad decision. Well, I'd rather be a woman. I think women are awesome.
Women are awesome.
If people have questions that they'd like us to, discuss, where should they send it?
They should send it.
Sounds Extreme
Yeah,
on Instagram.
sure. We just.
And we'll keep them anonymous.
Yeah.
So send in your questions if there's anything else you want us to talk about. It also helps us figure out where we stand on certain topics.
Yeah. I'd love that we just figured that out in the middle of a podcast episode, but okay.
I know, it's
Cool.
a great way to decide if we want to be together or not after 8 years.
Great. No pressure.
No pressure whatsoever.
Sounds extreme. We didn't do it. We need to come up with something better.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.